Before the advent of modern gaming, where digital purchases are easily achieved at the push of a button, battle passes cost more than your child's welfare, and being able to easily find your favorite Rule 34 artwork so that you can The 90s were a time of graphical innovation for the gaming market, most especially the advent of 3D games, with real-time 3-dimensional polygonal rendering becoming common thanks to better generational hardware. An era of revolutionary video games had begun, ranging from early arcade titles like Virtua Racing to later console games like Metal Gear Solid. The 3D market started becoming as common as owning a personal computer long before you had to worry about selling your organs for a graphics card. But among those early 3D titles, one that is hitting 30 years old now and experiencing the crippling existence of being a millennial is the first Twisted Metal. A racing game that is not actually a racing game, Twisted Metal was an arena-style American car simulator that let you have the zoomies while trying to blow up your fellow metal combatants. One of the first 3D games on the PlayStation 1, it was often considered to be a generally fun action game for its time. So, with fresh virgin eyes, what's it like to play 30 years later? For an action game that was meant to be very arcadey and combat heavy, finding out there was a story was about as surprising as finding out the next season of anime has 10 isekai TV shows. Set in the year 2005, which still feels weird because we're presently living in the future, it's Christmas Eve, and a tournament involving a battle to the death is created by a man named Calypso, who looks like he doesn't understand the basics of skincare, will grant any wish to whomever is the victor. And that's it. As basic as any early 2000s video game goes, with a story that's simply added on for fluff. Of course, story is not what I came to this game for, but at least there's some context for all the carnage that's about to happen. But hey, at least Twisted Metal lived long enough to have a TV show adaptation. I heard the second season was pretty good. Now to the actual game itself, having pretty much only experienced the later Twisted Metal games by looking over the shoulders of my brothers and cousins while watching them scream various profanity, I finally got to experience what the vehicular combat was like. And surprisingly, it's not as bad as I thought. With my favorite non-realistic racing sim being Mario Kart, playing the 30-year-old version of Twisted Metal felt right at home. You have the triggers that let you shoot your weapons, the square button to release the gas, a reverse button for when you need to back that ass up, a drift button which is essential for speedrunning, and a camera toggle to make you hurl upon getting into first-person mode. Using them wasn't that bad once I understood the layout, and I was able to successfully drive and shoot after a couple of deaths, to the point that I was motivated enough to find a character that I like to try to beat the game with. Some just felt a little too gimmicky, while others made you feel like you had the power of Grayskull.
And he prays!
Mr. Grimm clicked with me the best because he's got a pretty OP special weapon that looks like the developer's floating head. He's fast as boy, and can turn a 180 quicker than any Call of Duty player on console. Too bad he doesn't sound Jamaican, nor does he have pink hair. Knowing that he's probably the characters that all the speedrunners need to use, he was the obvious choice and helped me beat the game. That said, handling was on par for something that runs at less than, I think, 30 frames per second. It felt about as responsive as dunking your controller in a bowl full of honey and expecting immediate feedback. Turning didn't feel smooth, and trying to play a faster character almost felt dizzying due to the lower frame rate, while trying out the slower characters felt fine despite turning like a grandma in a Tesla. My deal with it brain adjusted to it pretty fast, but modern controls and performance is something I'm much happier to have. Controls aside, the main gameplay loop is an arena-style combat where I had to drive around the map, blasting the other drivers to be the last one standing. Picking up various weapon power-ups gave me better firepower and survivability. For something arcadey, I did enjoy it more than I should. I think it mainly reminds me of the battle courses that are featured in Mario Kart, but obviously with a bit more daka. Driving around, trying to meet the other drivers at intersections while timing my missiles and weapons gave me the same sense of thrill that I got while aerial dogfighting, but on the ground. So just actual dogfighting. Pretty fun when you can chase and land your shots. Also, I'm glad there's no time limit, and it's based on last driver standing. Otherwise, it would be very rage-inducing. Combating the AI sometimes did vary on the difficulty spectrum. At times, using the weapons effectively let me solo a few drivers, while others, for some reason, had their AI tuning to be godlike. I've heard of spin to win, but a truck doing this is ridiculous. Other times, it was just a cluster of cars piling together, and the firing of weapons with random collisions felt like a dice roll with who would come out on top. One dated awkward interaction was how the AI remained suspended whenever you weren't anywhere near them. Definitely due to performance limitations, but it felt kind of disjointed when you leave an area, only to come back to all the enemies being in the same position, sometimes just ready to shoot you. Oh, but the final boss was difficult as shit due to the fact that he's got multiple character special weapons and will just barrage you to death. I did eventually beat him by simply corner camping the bastard at every possible angle, and I'm proud of it! Had a lot of fun though. Shooting and aiming at the other drivers feels like a very uniquely Twisted Metal experience. Would have honestly loved to test these against real-world players. In fact, I kinda want a fun, well-developed multiplayer vehicle shooter just like Twisted Metal. I feel like a slightly scaled-down Battle Royale map would actually be pretty good for this type of vehicle combat. Maybe I'm just theorizing, but something Mad Max seems like a cool idea. On the presentation side, the graphics were PS1. That's all I gotta say. You either love the old PlayStation vibe, or you don't. Likewise, the sound is as PS1 crunchy as ever. But I think my favorite effects go to the team trying to put some personality into each of the drivers. Music was pretty good for the specific flavoring of the PS1. I got to hear a lot of rock metal tracks, and I didn't mind them one bit. In fact, they were great because I just got to play the game while listening to some tunes. Alright, now for something I've never done before, a totally accurate, you should take my word for it tier list based on my first and only 6 hours of playtime. Sweet Tooth, B tier. Guy has weapons, but handles like a lawnmower. Yellow Jacket, A tier. Pretty good all-rounder, and a good representation of your typical New York cab driver. Yeah. Dark Side, D tier. Terrible special weapon, and slow as f***. Hits like a truck, cause he is one, but at the cost of health. Outlaw, D tier. Terrible special weapon for what it is, and meh at driving. Come on man, act like a more modern cop and don't use your taser. Thumper, B tier. Good speed and handling. Special weapon is a bit too niche as a flamethrower and needs to be within kissing distance. Crimson Fury, C tier. Meh on special weapon and armor, but his speed and handling lets him zoom. Pit Viper, A tier. Pretty good handling and driving overall. Special weapon has some good damage for the ammo count, and she's only in A tier because of Warthog, A tier. Chunky, good handling and speed. Lacks a bit of oomph for damage, but he's got missiles for his special weapon and may outlive your burned ass. Mr. Grimm, S tier. The cream of the crop. Fragile, but best speed and handling, plus a stupidly strong special weapon that I love to use. Spectre, C tier. Good speed and handling, but his special weapon has not been the most reliable despite its Danny Phantom capabilities. Hammerhead, B tier. Very chunky boy with a lot of girth and can do extra damage when ramming into you. Roadkill, C tier. Alright handling and speed, but his special weapon doesn't do enough damage for what it does. His harpoon's penetrative power isn't all that pleasing.
Okay.
And that's all, folks. A surprisingly fun time for a game that is 30 years old now. I think most of my enjoyment stems from the lack of vehicular combat-based games that are pretty non-existent nowadays. But that's just how the trends of modern gaming goes. I do think a game like Twisted Metal would be a nice addition to today's gaming market, obviously something with a bit more refinement, tighter combat, plus some layered complexity to make it competitive. Still fun if you are in the mood for a bit of arcadey PlayStation 1 combat, but I also say pretty niche for anyone wanting to give it a try today. But that's gonna do it for today, guys. Thanks for sticking around. There will be more games to play and more videos coming soon, so please stay tuned if you'd like to see more. But for now, I'll see you all next time.